So, after 30 years, many ups and many downs, building a nation with Malta has come to an end. So let's talk about it. Apologies, it's been a while since the last Malta update. As you can probably tell, I've been moving house. So again, apologies if it's a little echoey in here. But now that the hecticness and stress of that is over, I can finally knuckle down and get back to making some YouTube videos. That'd be nice. So originally, when FM25 was delayed until March, I saw this as an opportunity to potentially take Malta all the way to the top. But it very quickly became clear that England were nigh on uncatchable in that time frame, especially with some other factors that we're going to talk about in a minute. And the last thing I wanted was for the save to become stale and us for just tread water for 10 years. That's no fun for anybody. But the final nail in the coffin was the player values. We got hit with yet another player value drop. Not as severe as the ones we'd experienced in the past, possibly due to the fact that we had grown a lot since then, but it still halved the values, at least, of every single one of our players, and they were already too low to begin with, which meant that we were now in a massively difficult position, as were the other clubs in Malta, whose now their players were just available to be picked off at will. So we decided to end the save after a nice round 30 seasons, mainly because I really wanted to win 27 league titles, which would make us the winningest team in Malta League history. So today, you're witnessing the final 2 seasons in recap form. There was supposed to be a recap for a season 29 on its own. I had to come up here and wait for the internet to be delivered, only for them to send the wrong cables and waste an entire day. We've all moved house. We know how this thing works. And my lord, some crazy stuff has happened in the past 2 seasons. And right now over on stream, we're actually 150 years into the future, looking through all the nonsense that's happened over the course of this save file. We did one stream of it on Sunday. We're finishing things off today with the final hurrah for Malta in general. Sorry for all the admin at the start of the video. It's the only time I could really put it anywhere. But with this save ending, that means there'll be a new save beginning this weekend over on Twitch, which will of course be Outcast to Icons. Long-time viewers of the channel will know all about that, but don't worry if you don't. I'll be making a full video talking about it later in the week. There will be YouTube recaps for that save as well. Obviously slightly different format because it's a different type of save, but nevertheless, stay tuned for that. And on that note, those of you on the Patreon that have custom regens, I will have sent out a message, which you should have already seen by now, asking if you want to update them for the new save. You can change clubs, any of that kind of information, so you can get that to me as soon as you can. Ideally, we can get that all plugged in for the new save. And the same goes for submitting players for newer patrons that joined after the start of the Malta save and couldn't get them in at the time. Obviously, now you can, so do, of course, let me know that as well. Now, since this is a 2-year recap, it's going to be a tiny bit more condensed than normal, but really not by much. We're summing things up here. It's going to be fun. Now that's out of the way, we came into season 29 of Building a Nation with Sirens of Malta after 5 Champions Leagues in 7 years, or 8 years if you ask the game, because it includes a year that we didn't get to the final at the start for some reason, with a chance to claw back England just a little bit to finish things off with a flourish. Now, normally we'd attack the transfer window like rabid wolves at this point, but of course, our players had lost more than half of their value in various places, which meant it was hard to get rid of Deadwood because nobody wanted to pay for them, and when they did, it was rubbish money, and all of our best players suddenly were wanted for like 25 to 30 million pounds again, which is just an absolute shambles. Didn't stop us from spending over 100 million pounds this summer though, as we were able to get a couple of players out, which I'm going to show you first. First out was Philip Yakubu, player we brought in for 9 million pounds on a good deal from a release clause from Borussia Mönchengladbach a couple of seasons ago, managed 1 game for us, did some loan spells, managed to flip him for 15 million pounds to Al Ittihad. It's the only way we were ever going to get any decent money for him. Not an amazing sale though, really. Slightly better deal was that of Benjamin Aguirre, the 32-year-old Argentinian central midfielder who we managed to flip to River Plate for 20 million pounds. The irony being, of course, that he joined them for free from Porto. We bought him off them for 7 million pounds, and they thought, hey, we've made out like bandits, only to then lose 13 million pounds in the end on it by bringing him back to the club. It's a strange deal for them, but it was good money for us. But the biggest out was Emmanuel Boulet, 45 million pounds. Now, you're looking at him and going, really? He is only 45 million, and that is the downside of the player values. That would have been like at the lower, massively lower end of his value before. Unfortunately, as a result of the player values, his value actually shrunk down to 13 million pounds. Now, the reason we got 45 for him is because about 7 different clubs were interested, and I was able to leverage those values by basically just offer out, accept to bid, cancel all the other ones, offer him out again for a little bit more, and slowly bid him all the way up to 45 million, which is where Man United basically tapped out, and we ended up managing to make a sale. But this sale right here was absolutely vital in terms of us funding ourselves to make at least a few interesting transfers over the course of this year, because it would have been absolutely devastating without him, basically. So let's move on to those ins now. I dropped 10 million pounds on Yassine Ascari from Wydad Casablanca. Now, this guy actually does have reasonably decent value still. 30 to 40 million is actually very, very high, given that players like Reynoso, as you'll see in a bit, are worth like 50 million pounds, which is crazy that you consider this guy and Reynoso to be the same. It's like it's compressed all of our player values, where the top ones are worth basically nothing, but the younger ones keep their value. Really, really odd. Point being, £10 million is a lot to play for a Moroccan player from a Moroccan league, but we really, really liked him. He's been on loan at Birkirkara this season. I think that's a good deal. We also signed Northern Irish international David Cassidy from Fulham for 4.6 million because we liked his actual temp polls and whatnot. Model citizen unfappable, and his name is David Cassidy, which is just fun retro references. I bet your mum knows who he is. It sounded like a your mum joke. It wasn't. That was just a genuine comment. Now on to actually quite good players. David Valus from FC Copenhagen, £10 million, but he's just so well developed and rounded for his age. I don't think he's going to have the best ceiling potentially, but he's had a decent season on loan at Sliema Wanderers, and you can't really say no to that kind of quality of player, even if his value isn't actually any more than we paid for him. A player that 100% was, though, was Armando Torres. Came in from Rayo Vallecano for £200,000 because Spanish release clauses, again, chef's kiss. He's worth £20 million, and he is very, very good indeed. Maybe lacks a little bit of those pure athleticism and stuff, but his mentals are phenomenal. Amazing tackling. Genuinely a phenomenal player. Next, though, we have possibly one of my favorite signings of the entire save. This is Christian Carvajal. He's coming from Envigado for £950,000. He's 18 years old, 2.5-star CA, 5-star PA, already considered a wonder kid, 6'2", 15 jumping reach, 15 pace, 14 acceleration, insane stamina, 16 tackling as well, reasonable heading. He looks to be an absolutely crazy player that I'm actually kind of gutted that we found so late in the save, because I feel like he's like the second coming of Carlos Vieira, arguably actually an even better player than him. I'm hoping to find him alone. Newsflash, we did in fact, if I recall correctly, actually find him alone. He is that good, but he's just a phenomenal footballer. 950 grand. It might actually be the bargain of the save, genuinely. Speaking of incredible players, Noé Tenler. If you remember Reto Bocons from many years ago, that Swiss attacking midfielder that we signed that I was super hyped about that just never really panned out, I feel like this is him, but actually good. 11.75 million from Basel, but when you find a guy with these kind of attributes at 18, you don't say no. Again, it's a bit like Carvajal, but I would argue he's even better. Got a loan to Sweetie this season. That was only a January move, of course, at that point, so he still played a decent amount in the second half of the year for them. I truly believe that this guy could be another worldie. Like model citizen unflappable again. Then I suffered a bit of head loss and dropped £23 million on Franz Mertes from Club Brugge. That was a bit of an overpayment. Like, I like him. I think he's a good player, but he's not £23 million good probably at that kind of age, particularly as he's only 17. Still, resilient unflappable. There's probably a good player in here. I resent paying that amount of money, especially when the values had just dropped. But I thought, you know what? In for a penny, in for £23 million. Slightly better deal, though, was the signing of You. I believe it's You, because that is definitely not an L. So he's just got double vowels as his name. I love that from him, actually. 1.5 million from Espanyol. He's just a really good winger. He's gone on to Nashar this year. Hasn't played a great... In fact, I think he's played at all for them in the second half of the year, which is surprising when you consider he's 2-star CA. But that's life, I suppose. Still phenomenal player. Hopefully has a bright future. The last of the signings I'm actually really pleased with is Olivier Manotas. Colombian, not as good as our other Colombian, but still he has amazing striker tempos. The finishing, dribbling, first touch are brilliant. Pace, acceleration, agility, sensational. £500,000. He's worth a load. Hasn't really played a lot for Hibernians, but again, he joined in January, so I find the second half of the season loan signings tend not to always play as much. They can't always get registered in time for Europe and things like that get in the way, but I think if we could get him another loan, he could be fantastic. But there was one other player that I spent way too much money on, and this is he. This is Nicolas Taboas, who I spent £59 million on. I don't even know why. He just has such lovely match engine physicals that I thought I'd give him a go. Like, we had Lahovi, but he was aging out of that position, even being a backup at this point. And of course, we had to have someone behind Mohamed Peters. So I figured that Nicolas Taboas could be potentially that man. Now, we'd obviously already set this sort of thing up. And then, yeah, he's worth less than we paid for him. But then that was always going to be the case. Is he wanted by someone? Who is wanted already? That's very surprising. I'm pretty certain he joined us in January. So to be wanted 6 months later, I bet they wouldn't pay £60 million for him. Point being, we've got some nice players for the future in there. In the second season, we've actually signed some really nice players for the future, despite not spending a huge amount of money. This year, it was more about getting some first-team guys to really crack on and try and win another Champions League. I always wanted 3 in a row. We're going to continue the theme of checking in with the league stuff later in the video today. We've got to kind of do that twice today. You'll see when we circle back to it. And start off with Europe. The task is a very simple one. We want to win a 3rd straight Champions League. The only way to do that is to win lots of matches. Let's get cracking. And what better way to start things off than by absolutely clubbing Manchester United 5-0. 2 for Peters, 1 for Kravitz, 2 for Javier, who actually ended up starting up front for us in this game because we'd lost Reynoso, Moser, and Tabakaru started the match as our 3rd choice striker. He then got injured as the game kicked off. I think it was like a few minutes in, wasn't it? 29 minutes into the game, he then has to go off injured, relying on our 4th choice striker, Javier, who then does get 2 goals. So fair play to him. 5-0 clubbing at Man United. Obviously didn't deserve to win 5-0, but still, it was nice to see our former goalkeeper absolutely having a mare, along with Emmanuel Boulet as well. What a result that was. We then continued that into the next match against Ajax. Hajaruin, Gudmundsson, and Javier again leading the line for us with 3 in 2. He'd barely even played 2 full matches for us in the Champions Champions League, but he'd done the business. Back-to-back wins. Then it was a weirdly difficult game against Slavia Prague away from home. We managed to eventually get the victory with goals from Vieira, Kravitz and Moser, but such a weird game. They managed to equalise in this one. We eventually found ourselves 3-1 up in this, but yeah, much harder considering we beat Man United 5-0, but still, 3 wins out of 3. Annoyingly, I actually made the cash point too early this year because FM's just decided to be heinous like that. We got a 4-0 victory this time away at Lyon. Gonzalo Reynoso, Pereira, Javier again off the bench this time, and Crompton really clapped them in the second half. We then made it 5 wins out of 5 with an away victory at the Emirates thanks to a late goal from Maximiliano Moser. We really were just getting goals from all over the pitch over the course of this season, especially with our strikers as well. Fantastic work from them. 5 wins out of 5. And then back to viewable games with another 5-0 victory, this time away at RB Leipzig. 3 straight away wins in there. 2 Pereira with a brace, Reynoso in there, an own goal, and a goal from Federico Maldonado as well, the attacking mid. Pereira had a monstrous result. Just incredible performances from us week in, week out in the Champions League, looking absolutely unstoppable this season. Then after Christmas, it continued. 4-1 victory over Rangers. Pereira, Peters, Valenhout, another penalty from Ivan Kravitz, making it 7 wins out of 7. And I was thinking to myself, is this going to be the year that we finally get 8 wins out of 8 and win the Champions League group absolutely flawlessly? You're damn right it was. 3-0 victory over FC Copenhagen. Otavio, Gudmundsson and Salamander Silva getting the goals. Just goals from all over the pitch. Like, this is all DMs and centre-backs grabbing us the goals in this game, as the strikers were really absent in this one. But it was 8 wins out of 8, 24 points on the board in the Champions League. But, of course, we still had other friends in Europe. And this season, something absolutely insane happened. I mean, first things first, just turn your attention to the top. 3 different sides went completely flawless in the Champions League. I don't think it's ever happened in this save that more than one side went flawless, firstly. Very rarely does a team actually get 24 out of 24 in general. Not only that, Barcelona and Real Madrid had identical records of goals for and against. We all had the same number of goals against. We only managed to win it because technically, well, not even technically, our goal difference was 6 better as a result of scoring 28 goals. But it was crazy that 3 teams won every single game in the group stages in there too. But that's not even the craziest part. Firstly, you'll see Hamren and Gudja both getting top half results for themselves, which is amazing. But look at the very bottom, 24th place, Sweetie United in with 7 points. We went back and looked. 7 points and a -7 goal difference is the worst record that a team in this save has ever got into the knockouts of the Champions League with. And would you know what result they got to get them into the knockouts? Yeah, it was a 2-1 victory away at Anfield. We saw them win at Anfield on the final day and went, away, they've got 7 points. Who cares? Basically, they're going to go out anyway, but what a result for that. Went to this page to look at our results and noticed that they've managed to sneak through. The other one was against Napoli too. They got a draw against Juve, lost to Marseille, Chelsea, Hamren, Gladbach, and Porto. As for Hamren and Gudja, tremendous work from them. 4 wins for Hamren against Leipzig, Valencia, obviously Sweetie and Basel. Got a draw in there against Hammarby, lost to City, Barca, and Atletico, as you'd expect. Gudja United though, Milan, Lyon, and Anderlecht. Great result against Milan away from home. Got draws against Dinamo Zagreb and Galatasaray. Possibly could have even won those games. A draw against Bayern, and of course defeats to Arsenal and PSG, as you'd expect. But just a great step up there. It is actually technically a step down as far as points gained, as you'll see, because obviously Hamren got 12, Gudja got 12, and Sweetie only managed to get 7, taking them to 31 points in total. Our record, I think, was 34, but having all 4 teams through to the knockouts of the Champions League was absolutely crazy. And our reward for all that hard work was to play off against 21st place Porto, which we made fairly light work of in the first game. Goal from Carlos Vieira, 1 for Gustavo Villar, but João Pires did get 1 back for Porto in the 92nd minute, and I thought, we should be in a good position, but you never know with these things. We needn't have worried, as the first leg was much lighter work. Peters, 2 for Gonzalo Reynoso, 1 for Joshua Crompton, 6-1, through to the quarterfinals. Terrific times. Which would see us pull off one of the luckiest / unluckiest games of all. Except there's more to come. We managed to get a 1-1 draw against Real Madrid. Chosen One gave us the lead with our only shot on target of the game. Hold my hands up. We were not good in this match, but we thought we'd managed to hang on until the 94th minute when Jonas Amschler, one of the best players in the world, honestly, managed to grab a late equaliser for Real. I would have still taken the 1-1 if he showed me these stats. Absolutely, I would have done. But when you throw away a win like that, it just sticks in you, you know? So we knew that we had to go and win the home game, which was actually much, much easier as Gonzalo Reynoso, once you hit the quarterfinal stage of the Champions League, Gonzalo Reynoso basically seems to gain 400 CA. He is unstoppable at this level because he just loves big matches. 2 more goals from him, 3-1 victory, another Iberian side knocked out of the Champions League. It's just what we do through to the semi-finals where we would face off against Barcelona, and my brain went, brilliant. We're basically in the final. For me, the quarterfinal's the hardest one because that's the one with the league game in between. Smooth sailing. That was until this happened. We lost 2-1 at home to Barcelona. They had 2 shots in the entire game and 0.27 XG. It was a long-range strike and another long-range strike. Just one of those games where you're just like, we are never going to win this match. Chance after chance was being blocked. Their goalkeeper didn't even have a good game. It was just blocked shots, missed chance here, missed chance there. absolute travesty of a performance, and it's the home game too, and you're thinking, right, I still feel like we were good enough to go away to Barcelona and get the dub. Also, shout out to Andre Holland for scoring their winning goal against us, our former player. But you just know how these things go. Literally, you know how these things go. Again, 0.38 XG for them. We were the better side in the away leg, still couldn't bloody score. They even got a red card, and I even said to chat at the time, guarantee you there won't be a single highlight after the red, and would you believe it, not a single highlight after the red. Barcelona knock us out of the Champions League at the semi-final stage by 2-1, where they only managed 3 shots on target over 2 legs. Just one of those. I think we had nearly 4 XG over the whole thing and just could not seem to score goals to save our lives. It was a horrible pair of games. To have that happen in one game is bad enough, but to have it happen in back-to-back matches with a red card as well just completely decimated us, because I felt we were going to go all the way, but that's just how it goes. Disappointing to go out here, of course, but what about our Maltese friends? Well, Sweet United actually drew Atletico and got the dub in the 91st minute. Incredibly, managed to get a win against Atletico Madrid, particularly as this is the team that qualified with the worst record ever. Hamren unfortunately drew Liverpool, because of course they did, and Goodyear United, though, got Dinamo Zagreb and managed to get the dub in Croatia to take themselves to within a hair's breadth of the next round. And then they went all the way. 4-2 victory over Dinamo Zagreb. Dominguez grabbing a brace. They were through to the round of 16 of the Champions League, which is great to see, and they deserved it. Not so easy, though, for Hamren, as they lost 2-1 at Anfield with a last-minute goal from the former Hamren and Sirens player, Filip Karalic. Unfortunately, Sweetie weren't quite good enough to get the dub in the end. They actually were leading this game as well. Wales Zaki gave them a 2-0 lead on aggregate, but then they threw it away. 90th minute winner from Hutchcox gave Atletico the dub, but wow. Sweetie really were showing some quality. Hamren, though, in the second leg against Liverpool, did manage to get a draw at home, but it wasn't enough to see them through against such a good side. But still, it's annoying when they get a top half finish and their reward is to play a team that should probably be a top 8 team anyway. But Pugliese and Mateus still continuing to do stuff. Showing that they're not getting outclassed by these teams was a massive deal. Unfortunately, Goodyear's reward for all this progress was to play Barcelona. You can kind of guess what happened there. 3-1 victory for Barca at home, followed by an incredible 2-1 victory at the Nou Camp for Goodyear. They beat Barca at the Nou Camp this year. We couldn't even manage to do that ourselves. So again, they're narrowly being eliminated by these big sides, and it's just so frustrating that they're this close to making that next step. But still, it's a lot of coefficient points just getting these guys through, and Goodyear going through an extra round is tremendous. It's just we couldn't do our part of the deal. But what of our friends in the Europa League and the Europa Conference League? Yeah, it's not great. Sliema Wanderers came 13th. They're a team that I always worry about in Europe. That's not even the worst part about this, though. They actually did surprisingly good. Beat Legia, beat Crvena Zvezda, beat Feyenoord, got draws against Lask, Sevilla and Tottenham, because they always do apparently. Lost to Midtjylland and Nantes, not really a huge surprise. 12 points, top half is what I expected from them. Zabar, though, I expected better from, and really they should have had better. I can't show you the stats because the games are so far away now. They got dubs against OB and Legia Warsaw. They drew with Ferencváros, but it was these. Losing to Spurs, Sporting and PSV Eindhoven, it is what it is. I think it was actually the PSV, Crvena Zvezda and Lask games. They lost all 3 of them, having 3 XG in every single game in those ones, and basically their opponents having nothing, and they lost every single one of them. I think if I recall correctly, Zabar won their first 6 matches in the conference in the Europa League on XG and lost 4 of them. Absolute nonsense that they were just not able to take their chances, and as a result only finished on 7 points and got knocked out entirely. Total mug jobs there, really. But Sliema's reward for coming 13th in the end was to actually play 24th place Red Star, and they pulled off a brilliant result. 4-1 victory in Serbia, setting them up nicely for the second leg, which naturally they lost at home, because this seems to happen a lot when you get one of our sides get a big away win. They always seem to lose the home game randomly, but there you go. They were through anyway, though, to face Celtic, where unfortunately things didn't go quite so well. 2-0 defeat at home with John Morrison scoring both goals. Celtic were very, very good in the Europa League this year, to be fair. In the second leg, the exact opposite happened. They managed to get the win at Celtic Park with a hat-trick from Lima, but it wasn't enough. So many 4-3 and 1-goal exits for Maltese sides this season, but at the very least they reached the round of 16. But you could just feel like, particularly with Zabar being out, there's a lot of points being left on the table in the Europa League. Out of interest, by the way, Man United won the Champions League this season as well, meaning that in the last 8 years, only Sirens and Manchester United have won the Champions League. Insane. But we did still have Hibernians in the Conference League, who did sort of what you'd expect of them. 10th place, they were not a particularly good side, but they managed to get 4 wins. Beat Flora Tallinn, Havnar, but they had pretty good results. The one game that we thought, oh damn, that's a hell of a result, is the Wolves win. They managed to beat Wolves, but they did also lose to Osijek and CSKA Sofia. But 12 points, nearly got through on goal difference as well. Pretty impressed with them. And then amazingly, they actually drew Hearts. Now, it was literally Hearts versus Hibs. You love to see it. Not quite how you'd want it to be, but they did get a 2-2 draw away from home, which they then followed up with a great victory in the Edinburgh Derby to give themselves passage to the next round. At least they managed to get through, and that was actually Manitas, the guy I showed you earlier, that scored the winning goal for them. This, however, then set up a tie against Genk, which they made light work of. 3-0 victory out of nowhere, just clapping them. Followed up by losing 2-0 in the second leg, and that is just how these things go. But they managed to get the dub through to the quarterfinals, with their face-off against Wolfsberger of Austria. Shout out to the fact that Wolves, Wolfsberger, and Wolfsberger all still in the Conference League here. And incredibly, got a 2-0 victory away from home in Austria. swiftly followed by a 2-0 victory in the home game as well, as Wolfsburg was sadly eliminated 4-1 by Fenerbahce. But Hibernians went through to the semi-final of the Conference League, and they would face off against Fenerbahce. Very tough team, particularly as they lost the away leg through an own goal. Chukwuemeka getting a great result against Wolves, where they took the lead and then Wolves equalised. Not that it mattered though, as both of them clapped it in the second leg. Hibernians with a 4-1 victory over Fenerbahce, because we just have great results against Turkish teams, to put themselves in the Conference League final while they were struggling heavily in the league. So they reached the Conference League final against Wolves, and in the end, unfortunately, not quite. 2-1 victory to Wolves in the end. Jorge and Beasley with the goals. Gallardo got one late back for Hibernians, but truthfully, I don't know if I can show the stats. They should be able to. They weren't really ever in this game. Wolves were comfortably the better side here. Hibernians didn't really turn up. Bit unfair playing this at Villa Park, I thought. Like, Wolves didn't exactly have far to travel for this game. But again, it's another Maltese team in a final and another one that fell short. Thank God that Valletta won us that Conference League. I couldn't have lived with myself if no other Maltese side had won a European trophy in this save. But there was still one more season for one of them to go and do that potentially. Coefficient-wise, second on the year, 19.643. Despite the lack of performances from us winning the Champions League, or not winning the Champions League, the real downsides in the Europa League, where Slima did bugger all in the group stages and didn't go that far themselves. Zabar did nothing in the group stage and got knocked out entirely. To come second on the year still shows how good quality our teams can be, but you can just see, and this is one of the reasons as well, why we were just like, we're never going to catch them. Not in a reasonable timescale. It just wasn't going to happen. Sure, if we dumped 15 more seasons in maybe and hoped that our player values returned to normal, perhaps we'd manage to get back up there with England and challenge them. But the amount of slog that would be, I just don't think it would be interesting content, and I think that's, you know, important to me as well, which is why we made the decision to call it a day after the following season. But we did at least want to try and get back up into second spot on the year. As it was, we did manage to get back above Italy into third spot, but we're still quite some distance behind Spain. But yet again, progress every single season since we got 7/8 teams in Europe. And we wanted to see if we could go out with a bang, given that we only had 7 teams in Europe in our final season of the save. It just occurred to me, we actually had 8 teams in Europe for this final season of the save because of this. So we actually, yeah, we won the league by 18 points. But this is the problem. Because of us coming second in the coefficients this year, this is the first time we've managed that since we've had this number of teams. We got 5 Champions League spaces. The downside is that obviously Gudja and Hamren are in there, but Melita, yeah, that's right, Melita and Tarshin Rainbows would be our other 2 teams in the Champions League, who have a combined +1 goal difference. What's the point? Sweetie United, bear in mind, the team that are always in the Champions League and doing good stuff, would only be in the Europa next year. With Birkirkara, Zabar, Mr. Disappointment Club, would make it into the Conference League at the very least, but it's a real tough one for us to have 8 teams in Europe, and especially those teams in the Champions League. Hibernians, of course, get into the final, but did also get relegated, so potentially, had they beaten Wolves in the final, by the way, we would have actually had 9 teams in Europe this year, because they would have got into the Conference League as well, or the Europa. Masterstock didn't actually have the worst season ever, just relatively poor season. 77 goals conceded, 8 points. The worst ever season was Marsa, with 89 goals conceded and 5 points, and no wins. Hilariously, in the second tier, Dingley Swallows finally got promoted. Zuri were in that second spot all season. Dingley beat them on the final day as far as to get that promotion with a dub away at Mostar, and Zuri dropping some points, which means our relationship with Dingley will literally be forced to end, and all of those loan players they have will be gone, meaning they'll have nobody in their squad for next summer. Stats-wise on the year, Reynoso, 36 goals this year. Monstrous season from him. Moza didn't play too much this year. Mostly was a substitute, but still 17 goals. He's truly great as well. Kravitz was brilliant with 15 goals. Pereira only managed the 12, but did get 20 assists, which is genuinely astonishing. Hajarowin, he's just right there, but he's never really been more than the sum of his parts. He's a player that is passable and does the job for us, but he's not like an elite level player. I just feel like he's kind of maxed out even at only 23. Villa as well with 10 goals is very impressive too. 20 assists for Pereira is the most actually. Babesi with 18. Pepita's only 16 this year, which is a bit of a downward year for him in many ways. Zimmer actually managed to get 10 goals himself. Not goals, assists. Not focusing too much on the stats this time because obviously we've got a lot of stuff to cover. But yeah, still good numbers being put up by pretty much everybody. Moser still showing good stuff. Kravitz leading the line like an absolute Donny. We will talk about the multinational team, but we'll do that at the end of the next season as well. That way I can bundle it in. So the finances at this point were actually extremely healthy. We had actually made a profit of £9 million this season, despite the 65 million loss the year before. But we knew that next season could potentially be even tougher, as we actually anticipated player values dropping even further, which made it even more difficult for us. Especially as going into season 30 of Building a Nation, we wanted to set the club up for the future. With the looking forward thing we're doing over on stream right now, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just spending all the money, putting them in huge debt or whatever, and causing them problems down the line. We wanted to keep this hegemony to see if Malta could actually achieve anything in our stead, so to speak. And if you've seen the first Looking Forward stream, you know that they did exactly that, just not always with us. Which meant that I think probably for the first time in about 10, 12 years, we didn't spend over £100 million on players, but we did still manage to sell a few. So let's talk about those two as we go into season 39. 39? 30, the final season of the save. The main outs this year, firstly, was Pedro Figueira. It sucks to see him go for £15 million when you consider that this guy is, look how good he is, and we were forced to sell him for 15 million quid. And that should tell you everything about where our player values are at this point. This is a player that was worth over 100 million at one point, and that's just how these things go. And we had to send him to Barca of all people as well. Got 13 million for Juan Pablo Paz. I was happy to do that though, because he's 32 years old. I spent several seasons on loan at Sevilla. I just could never seem to find him a big buy. We actually had agreed a deal at one point of 45 million with someone a couple of seasons ago, but he turned them down at the last minute, and we were forced to sell him for 13 million. We did at least manage to sell Federico Maldonado to Man United for 28 million pounds, but again, I didn't like selling to other European rivals, but it was the only choice we had to pay the money. The one big sale we were able to make though was Alexander Lacerac, our second choice goalkeeper, who'd never really played all that much for us. In 7 seasons at the club, only 54 league appearances. £50 million to Chelsea is just what I do. We bid them up, obviously. In the end, Chelsea just desperately needed a goalkeeper. They bid on, first they actually bid on our initial goalkeeper, but then they went for our backup in the end, and we got £50 million for our backup goalkeeper. So that was actually a really good piece of business, but it was the only piece we were really able to do, and we really did not spend a lot of money. But I just want to highlight a few of the guys that I feel like are going to be genuine stars for the future that we've signed this summer, because we didn't really sign anyone that was first team level, really. What I do want to point out though is Tengiz Megaladze, a Georgian right-sided winger that we saw in a scout report from Dilajuri because he had Georgia caps, doing our standard national tap scouting. We could see some of his attributes, but the star rating on him was literally 1.5 and 3 stars. And we just looked at that and thought, there's no way this guy is as bad as that. And I wanted to prove a point about how you really should rely on some of your own intuition on these kind of things. Lo and behold, a year and a half later, when he's actually signed for us, he's much, much better than that in theory. And that star rating seems to be growing every time I get a new report on him. He's developing lovely. He's worth an absolutely monstrous amount of money. Really, really like this guy. He's on loan at Sochaux at the moment. I also dropped £31 million on Mohamed Safar, mainly because he's got 15 tackling and 16 heading. To have those attributes at 16, which is when we signed him, we thought that is a brilliant piece, because those are such difficult attributes to get any growth in. Tackling basically never goes up at all. I thought I could develop this guy into a genuine beast. He's not amazing, but he has got okay physicals as well on top of that. Still only 17, but we did pay £31 million for him, which is a lot, I grant you. But a player I'm really excited about was Rob Dahl. His actual name is Rob Dahl, but once chat get hold of a name like that, you're never getting it back. Needless to say, free transfer from Leeds. He was 23, England international, joined us on a free transfer. Might be my favourite signing of the summer. He technically is a first teamer, but we didn't have to pay any money for him. He's still only worth 40 to 46 million pounds. If he's at Barcelona, he's worth 180 million pounds instantly. It's actually crazy, despite us having the best rep in world football, but that's just how these things go. He has been a phenomenal signing. I really brought him in because Shirabadi, I was just not convinced was able to do that job for us at the elite level I wanted, and I felt that Rob Dahl could just be that little bit better for him. And truthfully, he's actually been around the same, but it has taken a little bit of the pressure off of Shirabadi Hajaru, so I'll take that. And for free, you can hardly say no. Only on 64 grand a week. I also dropped £10 million on Ivan Veturic from Dinamo Zagreb. He's just a really well-rounded player, and when you see a guy like this, he looks like one of those forever 5-star potential type guys, so I decided why not dump 10 million into him. We also have this guy here, Yom Ji-sung, who joins from Pohang Steelers for 1.5 million. He just looks like monster of the future, basically. He's worth an absolute fortune. Half of these young players we signed are worth more than half of our starters at this stage because of the weird way prices are working at the moment. He's not got the pure pace, but he's got wonderful striker tempos with that pace, dribbling, finishing, first touch, composure. Decisions could do with some work, but at only 18, he's got 10 caps for career already. He's like Kim Min. If you remember Kim Min from my Bolton save, he feels like the next generation of him. Oh yeah, we also picked up this 31-year-old goalkeeper, Sergio Luis, on a free transfer from Bragantino, which is another one of the reasons I was more than happy to sell Latrak for 50 million, because we had Sergio Luis coming in for free. Oh, the wheeling and dealing, man. I love to see it. What a guy. Another fantastic freebie was that of Junior, who we got for free from Flamengo. Once again, we tried to sign him off of them. I did this a few years ago. I tried to sign him. They wanted way too much money mid-season. They wanted I think it was £17 million for him, and I was just like, no, it's just not worth it. And then because he was on our shortlist, a few months later we got a notification saying, hey, contract's up, would you like him? And I thought, yeah, yes I will. So we got him on an entirely free transfer in the end, and they've lost out on nearly 20 million quid. I'd have given them 13 million. I think that's what I was trying to offer. But that actually brings to an end of I think he was actually the last signing I made in this entire save at this point, and what a way to go out as well. So that brings us to us in Europe, the final season of the save, and it was really, for me, European-wise, on a Sirens level, all about revenge. I wanted revenge for the nonsense that Barcelona had put us through last season. This time around, we started off at home to Paris Saint-Germain. Vieira managed to bail us out of this one. A relatively poor performance considering we were the home team, just couldn't get the ball off them really, and it was an immediate drop back to not being able to win again. But then we did pull it back a little bit. Kravets and Shirabadi Hajaran grabbing the goals, but Basie was sent off in the first half here, and we were actually able to defend quite well, and honestly looked fairly comfortable with 10 men for the most part in this game. Chelsea got one late goal back, but it wasn't enough. We had a very, very tough set of Champions League fixtures this season as well. Like, it was probably the toughest I've ever seen. So not beating PSG at home was a worry, but still, good result against Chelsea. As we then followed that with one of our easier games, which we made very difficult for ourselves. We actually went behind against Lech Poznan before Maximiliano Moser and Joshua Crompton turned it around. If we'd have lost this game, it could have been catastrophic for us, but we did get our easiest game out of the way and got a good dub in the end, which was then followed by a relatively comfortable victory away at RB Leipzig. Kravets and 2 more for Gonzalo Reynoso, doing just what he does. Rob Dahl was an absolute monster in this game from key passes too. Love him. But then it was big time. Away at the Emirates, another crazy tough game. If you remember that we did win here last year and we managed it again. Pereira gave us the lead in this one. 2 more goals from Dahl, having a great season before Adnan Alic got one back for Arsenal, but it wasn't enough. It was their only shot on target of the game. We were the better side and deserved the win. Then went into yet another crazy tough game away at Anfield. Moser gave us the lead. João Wouters got the equaliser of Liverpool. We were the better side in this one and deserved the dub, so to drop more points. But you see, we played Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain already in our first 6 fixtures in the Champions League. Really, really tough games, and I think we'd come through pretty damn well. After Christmas, at least, it got a little bit easier. 5-0 hammering of Marseille. Kravets, Otavio, Crompton and Moser getting the goals as they do to get us to keep us going. And lastly, we finished off with a very easy result against Shakhtar in the end, where Chirubadi Hajaran genuinely had a fantastic game. 2 goals for him, 1 for Hans Zimmer, replacing the injured Babezi. Dominated them, should have had more goals, but still a very, very successful season considering the quality of opposition we faced. But now, hold on to your hats, because remember, we had 5 teams in the Champions League this season, but 2 of them were Melita and Tarshin. Yeah. Magical scenes. We managed to win it again, this time on goal difference, but that isn't the real magic. The real magic was the fact that Hamren came 16th, Tarshin came 22nd, and Gudja United came 14th in the Champions League. Melita unfortunately came 29th, but they did still get 2 incredible wins against Arsenal and Marseille, which is wild. The fact that they won at the Emirates, Arsenal actually did play a lot of Maltese sides this year and did not have a good record, but what a result for Melita that was. They actually still had a chance going into the final day to actually qualify. Couldn't quite make it in there, but Tarshin in their first ever Champions League season, 10 points. Incredible scenes. Beat Villarreal, Manchester United and Nordsjælland. Got a draw against Celtic in there as well before losing to Porto, Real, Juventus and Club Brugge. The Club Brugge one's actually the most surprising result. Hamren as well. Bodø, PSG, Shakhtar and Fenerbahce, which they beat 7-0. What is it with us against Turkish teams, man? Got a draw against RB Leipzig. Lost to Arsenal, Inter and Dortmund and got 13 points. But Gudja with the 14 points. Incredible results. Now, admittedly, their draw was somewhat favourable. Club Brugge, FC Copenhagen, Hammarby and Young Boys. Good results there. Porto and Juve for the draws, and then lost to Barcelona and Manchester City. But top half for them and Hamren is incredible. Tarshin qualifying is wild, particularly as they combined for 43 points in the Champions League, which is nearly 10 more than we'd ever seen before. 4 teams through, even more points for the coefficient. It is just the dream. But all of that for us left us facing off against Juventus, which we found incredibly, incredibly easy. 4-1 victory in Turin. Dahl, Taboas, chosen one, and Babezi getting the goals just from all over the pitch. No strikers needed. And then the second leg, it was much of the same. 7-1 victory. Reynoso, Hajaran and Kravets getting the goal. 7-1 through to the next round and the quarterfinals, where things were similarly easy. Away at Inter, Moser getting us the goal to set up a lovely home victory, hopefully. Who am I kidding? It was extremely easy. 5-0 on aggregate. Dahl, Pereira, Gudmundsson and Kravets just flying our way through. But then toughness, as we would play Manchester United, the team that we've always got that little problem of beating in Europe. So playing them with a chance to get into the Champions League final was a toughie. Particularly as we'd potentially play Man City if we got to the final. And then it got worse. We put down an absolutely shocking performance at Old Trafford. Florian Michling, who'd just won the Ballon d'Or, gave United a 1-0 victory, and I just thought, you know what, we're good at home, but I do worry about us here. But we needn't have worried. We got the luck this time around. A Gonzalo Reynoso hat-trick. Florian Michling missed a penalty, more like Florian missed a penalty for United in this game that could have possibly put, I mean, they were the better side, honestly. The penalty takes up a lot of their XG, but still, Reynoso's semi-final hat. I wonder how many goals he's got in total in the quarterfinals onwards in the Champions League. His goals per game record must be like over 1 a game at this stage of tournaments now. To score a hat-trick in the semi-final to put us into another final is absolutely mad. He's just the best. But that then did set up a final against Manchester City. Now, every time we've played a club from Manchester in the Champions League final, we've lost it. And we really did want to win the Champions League in the last season of the save. And that is exactly what we bloody did. Gustavo Sanchez gave City the lead out of nowhere as we were dominating the opening phases of this game. But we just didn't let it get to us. Won a penalty for Julian Kravets as Babezi was pushed over. Then Rob Dahl, of all people, to score the winning goal in the Champions League final. He went from Leeds United to winning the Champions League in 1 season. And I do think he was the right signing. Like, he has, as you've seen here, contributed a lot of important goals for us this season. Hajaran's done well, but just taking that pressure off, I think, really allowed us to push on and win. I think it was our 6th Champions League of the save, and that made it in 9 years. 3 wins for Sirens, 6 wins for Sirens, 3 wins for Manchester United. It's incredible that in a 9-year spell, no one other than us and United has won the Champions League. But what of our Maltese friends, since you now know that they didn't get to play us in the final? Just thought I'd bring you to this page so I can explain the results and the fixtures that they got. Hamron would face off against Villarreal, a relatively winnable tie for them. Goodyear would have the displeasure of playing against Arsenal, and Tarshin would have to face off against AC Milan. Not easy ties whatsoever. And Goodyear did kind of exactly what you'd expect. Narrow 1-0 defeat. It's just what we've come to expect at this point, except then that happened. Let's ignore the fact that Tarshin lost 5-2 at home to Milan. Goodyear beat Arsenal 4-0. Arsenal lost to us, Melita, and Goodyear all in the same season. They actually won, and they had another game against multi-side as well. Goodyear knocked Arsenal out of the Champions League. These are the kind of results we needed to push themselves through to the next round of the Champions League. Tarshin were not quite so lucky on that front of things, unfortunately. Hammer managed to get themselves a 2-2 draw away at Villarreal, which is usually good enough. As the second leg was another 2-2 draw, but they managed to win it on penalties. Look at the end of this game, by the way. Hammer were winning it with Pugliese. Villarreal equalised on the night in the 87th minute. Hammer then go back in front in the 90th minute, only for Villarreal to equalise again in the 91st minute. Hammer managed to come out on top, though. Tarshin at least got a brilliant draw away at Milan, but it wasn't enough to see them progress. But that still meant that we had Goodyear and Hamron into the knockout round, or the next knockout round of the Champions League. 5-2s were back on the menu again as Man United hammered them 5-2. Hamron got a 1-1 draw against Manchester City, but since you know what happened to Manchester City and Manchester United, you know what happened in the next round of fixtures. A 1-0 defeat for Hamron there, and a 1-1 draw for Goodyear at Old Trafford. So they went down swinging, but just not quite enough. But they were just so close to getting there. Hamron really gave Man City a run for their money, and they are genuinely a fantastic side. But to see Goodyear knock out Arsenal, Tarshin were there too. It's nice to see. The progress was there. So what of the Europa League? Yeah, it was a bit of a different story this year with Sweetie and Birkirkara in the Europa League instead of Slima and Zabar. Sweetie, 7 wins, 1 draw, 22 points, win the entire group stage. Look at those results in there. Valencia, Bayer Leverkusen away, Monaco dub, Red Bull Salzburg away. They looked unfazed by any of it. Got a draw against Dinamo Zagreb. Honestly, that was an easier game. They probably should have won that as well, but 22 points, what a result. Birkirkara with 5 wins of their own. Rijeka, Newcastle, Napoli with an absolute clobbering there. Got a draw with Wolves as well. Lost to Valencia and Rangers, which was slightly disappointing, but still massive points hauls for both of these two, and they got to skip around too. And then things got even better for Sweetie as they got a 1-0 victory away at Partizan in their first of the knockout matches, thanks to Wael Zaki. Unfortunately, Birkirkara got the pleasure of drawing Wolves. That was their reward, basically, and they lost 2-1 in Wolverhampton. Not that they let it affect them, as they went and clobbered Wolves 4-1 in Malta to progress through and knock out one of the English sides, which is brilliant to see. Sweetie United got a narrow victory over Partizan to push their way through to the quarterfinals as well. And then things took a bit of a turn. Birkirkara with a 4-3 defeat away at Real Sociedad as Sweetie lose 2-1 at home to Rangers. Really, really disappointing result there, but Rangers are a decent side. But Sweetie found a way in that second leg. Oscar Crisanto won the game for them. They then won it on penalties to get to the semi-final of the Europa League. Birkirkara lose 7-5 on aggregate. That red card really cost them because, I don't know if you can see this, yeah, this game was 5-5 on aggregate going into stoppage time. Real Sociedad scored twice in second half stoppage time to knock Birkirkara out of Europe. In fact, not only that, Birkirkara were 2-0 up in this match when all this went wrong for them and were actually looking to progress. The red card killed them. But that put Sweetie through to the semi-finals of the Champions League, where they would face off against Real Sociedad, and it'd be Newcastle Sporting in the other leg. And then Sweetie did this. 2 red cards, by the way, in the Newcastle Sporting game. Then what was that about? Sweetie with a 2-0 victory in Spain. They were this close to a Europa League final. They'd been there once before, a long time ago though, and they did it. In the second leg, Sporting knock out Newcastle. Sweetie with a 2-1 victory over Real Sociedad, bringing them to their second Europa League final of the save. Now, this is big because remember, in this save, no Maltese side has ever won the Europa League. Valletta have got a Conference League. We've got 6 Champions League. Sweetie is the only team that have ever reached a Europa League final, and they lost it, I believe, to Marseille many years ago. I think Roy Fleming was still playing for them at the time. Boom. Sweetie United 1, Sporting 0. Juan Carlos Cardozo wins Sweetie United the Europa League, and we finally have a complete set. It was a dreadful game. Sweetie were really, really good in possession, great on the ball, and just didn't create enough high-quality chances, but they got one chance for Cardozo. He put it away, and they got the dub. Incredible scenes for them. So a Champions League win for us, a Europa League win for Sweetie, and just really glad to have a complete set. But the question is, could we go one step further with our final team in Europe? And that was, of course, our friends Zabar. They couldn't have had a better start, though, winning the Conference League group with only 15 points. So their last game of the group, they'd actually won 5 in a row. They lost to PSV, and we went, crap, they've ballsed it up. Only to then go look and find that the other teams had also fallen over themselves. Usually 15 points is not enough to win the entire group, but they got it done in the end, which is brilliant. Wins against Rapid, UTA, Shamrock Rovers, Charleroi, and Servette. Great results for them. Managed to get themselves a bye. With they then face off against Standard Liège. Great win for them away from home. in Belgium, followed up with a 3-1 victory at home to progress through to the quarterfinals, where they'd get the pleasure of facing off against Čukarički. Then again, they were a team that had just beaten Eintracht Frankfurt. Not that it mattered to Zabar, as they beat them 3-0 in the home game, only to though go and win 4-0 on aggregate in the end. You'll see PSV are through as well, Vitesse through along with Lyon, sending them through to the semi-finals of the Conference League. And you can see where this is going. They would draw Lyon in the semi-finals. A 1-1 draw away from home at Lyon. And we thought, right, this is on now. Vitesse had beaten PSV in an all-Dutch semi-final as well. It was set up perfectly, only for them to go and lose with a 91st minute goal from Lyon in the second leg. Late goals have cost Malta so hard this year, and Vitesse was the other team in the final. I reckon a Zabar versus Vitesse final, I think Zabar would have been the favourites for that, and they could have managed to get another one, and we could have won all 3 in the same year. I don't know if we even did that with MTK, but still, what a season this was for Malta. Coefficient-wise, dominated the year. 22.688. Our second best season of the entire save in general, but by far the best season, in fact by a full 3 points, and this was with 8 teams in Europe as well. So for once 8 teams actually benefited us, because we got 8 teams doing more stuff rather than just the dilution happening. Sometimes 8 teams is a curse if you get a dreadful time of it. Melita were looking like they were going to anchor us, but they did get those 2 wins. So truthfully, I'm still not sure how much 8 teams really did for us. I still wonder if actually if we still had only got 7 teams, if the dilution would have still helped us. In the end, it didn't allow us to overtake Spain, but we got so close to them and getting back into 3rd place. But you could see, even with that, still 14 points behind England. It's just almost impossible, basically. England might have been losing a 26-point season the next year, and we gained 8 points on them at the start of the season. We would still need to outscore England next year by like 5 to 7 points before we would have another chance again, and it would just get worse from there. And that's why we felt it was time to end. But what a season to finish off on. Finally getting Europa League, finally just goes our way. Things even went a bit weird domestically as well. Only won the league by 3 points despite a plus 83 goal difference. Now, part of that was beating Dingley 16-0. I must admit, we beat them 9 and 16-0 on a result of them not having any players. And then I might have bought the rest of their players off them just for the memes. So that did end up actually with us having 9 teams in Europe for the following season. Not that we'll be playing the following season, but were we to, there would be 9. So if you want the save file as well, actually, it's in the Discord. So you can actually continue it if you want to. But just bear in mind, you will have 9 teams in Europe next year. So God help you, I will say on that one. But yeah, Hammer actually gave us a really good run this season. At one point, we're top until like match day 22 when we finally got a dub over them. Dingley didn't even become the worst team ever in the end. They managed to actually only get 6 points. They equaled the worst goal difference ever. Sorry, the worst goals against effort ever with 89, but they did manage to get 6 points and managed to beat Nashar Lions, remarkably. On the stats, Reynoso was brilliant again. 33 goals at 32 years old, but Moser really stepped up this year. Like, did play a few more matches from the start. 27 goals in 21 games. 21 XG there. He really has, and he's the perfect man to take over from Reynoso, like, if you're going long term. Crompton as well, with 14 goals. Only starting 13 games. I've got 14 goals this year. I love how he's worth £2.4 million. You can see here as well on our values, like how, like, one of the best strikers in the world is worth £40 million. Yet we've got youth players that are worth that kind of money. It's actually crazy. A few players that are a bit more than that, like Moser, but still, it is silly to me. As for the assists, Babesi, 21 assists this year. Peter spent a lot of the year injured, but still played a good amount of matches, so only 9 assists out of him is very surprisingly low. But Babesi, again, just continues to be a monster. He must be coming up on like 200 assists for the club. Zimmer as well, with 11 behind. Both of our right backs were the top assisters. Brooksy had a pretty good season on top of that as well. Right, now to the multinational team, because incredibly, they actually reached 98th in the world. I wanted to see if they could get top 100 in this save, and they bloody well did. They're down to 100th now, but still, isn't that cool? The main reason for that is, firstly, they had the Euros qualifying group. Annoyingly, the game is like glitching out and I can't show you it. Point is, they came 4th in their group. Not amazing, but the biggest reason for their success was the Nations League. They came 2nd in their Nations League group, and if it wasn't for some like slightly icky results towards the end, most notably that draw against Gibraltar, they had a really strong chance at actually winning their group and getting to Nations League Group B. But they got enough dubs in there that it gained them enough points to get into 98th place in the rankings, which is awesome to see them top 100. And what I will say, as well, as in the first looking forward stream that we did, because today obviously is the last one, Malta's national team did something absolutely unbelievable. So I'll leave that there. In the end, the Lone Farm finished with like down into sort of the 215, 220s again in the end, just because, of course, you know, it was difficult and we weren't super bothered about extending. Well, we were extending loads of loans, but finding new ones was becoming more and more tough. You can see though, people like Wales Zaki, he is crazy good. Gauto as well, underrated player. We've probably not looked at actually Gauto very often. Look at the state of him. Incredible centre back on loan at Hamren. He's only 23 years old. He's the sort of guy that will probably be with Sirens for a long time into the future. He really, really will. The Lone Farm has been fantastic. And on the topic of the Lone Farm, obviously, the Lone Farm video that I promised, it will still be coming. Even though the save will be finishing, I'm going to make that for you. I'm going to basically use season 31 essentially as that video, so I can show you all in real time throughout that video. I did have a load of it recorded, and then the footage corrupted because apparently it's like the world does not want to let me record that video for you. I will make sure it happens now that everything's moved in and everything's settled in the new house. December, we can finally kick things off again with the channel because I've got so much stuff I just want to get out. It's annoying. It's like I've got my finger over the edge of the hose and there's just so many different videos that are in the works that I just want to start pumping out for you. But now hopefully I can. So I realize this has been potentially a bit of a longer recap video. Obviously it's 2 seasons. That makes sense. Let me just sort of show you, I don't know, where do we even finish things off here? I guess on the club info screen to sort of show you where we finished. Yeah, as I said, the save file will be in the Discord in the stream chat section. You can download that as well as the looking forward save in the future if you want to mess around with that. But the one in the Discord that's the main save file, you can just take over as Janosch and kind of keep things going and carry on. Oh, actually, one more player to show you. I can't believe I missed him, actually. This guy. I can't believe I actually forgot to show you this guy earlier. £10 million. Why did I not show you this guy? Evangelos Ponticas. Easily one of the best players for that age group that I've ever seen in FM. He was 16 when we found him. He has 12 caps for Greece already. He's legitimately ridiculous. If you got this far in the video, let me know what you think of Ponticas, because I think he's up there with one of the best players I've ever seen in his age group. He's astonishingly good and seems to have reasonably high PA. He says sitting here as if he doesn't literally know the player's PA as a result of the looking forward. It's 180, which is not even that high. That ends Building a Nation with Malta. Now, for those of you that are wondering, next year with FM25, we will be doing Building a Nation. It's going to be with Poland and Wisła Krakow. I really want to revisit Poland because of what we did there initially on YouTube many, many years ago, and Wisła are just the perfect team for it. It means we don't have to have loads of database changes either. We can kind of go pretty much vanilla, and I think that's going to be cool, especially moving into the new save. But for the time being, I'll see you lovely people over on stream now, of course, and of course on Sunday when there'll be a video out telling you about the new save as well as beginning the new save this Sunday. It's basically European Lower League Journeyman. There's some very specific requirements on the save though, which are those of you that have seen my Outcast to Icons videos in the past will know all about. But seriously, thank you so much for the support on this save. Thank you for sticking with me this year. I know the content's not been where I wanted. I've said this every single time. There's been some things that I can't talk about on stream or don't really want to as well, but it's just, yeah, bear with me, and I thank you for your patience. Love you lots. See you guys over on stream. Hold your gun. Capybara. There's a capybara up there now. Ta-ra.